Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Robin Lawrence. I'm an Agile coach, safe program consultant, and a professional Scrum Master, and I'm based here in the UK. I've been working with Akaditi for some time, and I also work with Bradtack. So I work in the Agile space, but I also have a background in biological science. So today we're going to have a discussion about Agile technology and the future of work. It's a really broad subject area, and we hope to do it some credit, but we're going to have a session that has a little bit of interaction as well. And I can't actually see any of you, so feedback's a little tough. So Annabelle, we're going to need to do an exercise. And I don't know, are you able to allow people to unmute themselves? Can you unmute everybody?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, so I need to unmute people for the exercise, okay? And just have a normal meet and greet and say hello and get some feedback. Okay, so tell me when everybody's unmuted, Annabelle.
Okay, sure.
Are we unmuted?
Yes, everyone is unmuted.
Everybody's unmuted. Good afternoon, everybody. Can I get some feedback? Say hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Excellent, excellent. There's human life. I'm just staring at a screen, which is not great. Okay, good. Good to know that there's life out there. Okay, so I gave the introduction to our discussion this afternoon. We're looking at agile technology and the future of work. But first, I want to look at a little piece of human technology before we get into things, and we've got a little exercise to do. So I'm going to need some help from you guys. I'm going to need a little bit of feedback, and what we're going to do is just take a short amount of time. We're going to stop what we're doing and we're going to breathe. And what we're going to do is we're going to do some deep breathing, and then we're going to hold our breath, followed by some breath restraint. I'm just going to tee this up on my phone so that we can time it. Now, it's a really, really simple exercise. Everybody can do this. We're going to take 11, 1, deep breaths. On the 11th breath, we'll exhale and we'll hold our breath for as long as we can. Is that clear to everybody?
Yes. It's clear.
Yeah, give me some feedback. Okay, good. So I'll just show you, I'm just going to do 2 breaths to show you the breaths, and then I'll show you to exhale and then hold it. So you can just breathe in, breathe out, in, out. And then when it comes to the 11th one, you're going to do this, breathe out and hold it. Has everybody got that?
Yes.
Excellent.
That's me.
So I'm going to count 3 in. 3, 2, 1, in. Hold it. Okay. All right. Has everybody done that? Give us some feedback, guys.
Yeah, we did.
To the best of our abilities.
Okay, good, good. Okay, so I'm just gonna call on a couple of people. Tell us how you felt before and how you felt afterwards. Anybody, just shout out.
Calm down.
I feel relaxed now.
You feel relaxed? Does
Yeah.
anybody agree with that?
Yeah, sure.
Does anybody feel more excited, ready to jump around?
Feel more
Well, I will say yes to that, Robin.
Okay. Well, everybody's different. So there's no right and wrong answer here. Okay. But everybody experienced something. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Very true.
You'll see the significance of this little experiment as we go through our discussion. And, once you get to realize my scientific tendencies, perhaps you'll forgive me. Maybe you won't. Who knows? Let's see how it goes. Okay. So the ideas that we want to have a look at and discuss around are laid out there for you. So we want to have a look at artificial intelligence, how that's going to impact the world of work. We want to have a look at what drives a lot of artificial intelligence programs, namely algorithms. We want to consider consciousness. We want to have a look at bio-integrated technology. People talk about wearable technology. We can talk about wearable technology. We can talk about implantable technology. And we also want to consider the future of work. But I want to do that through the lens of looking at the purpose of work. We're going to also have a strong focus on human technology, and I'm going to get some of your ideas on that. And we're going to look at some of the work that is going on at some of the top institutions in the world to try and understand organizational culture, because this is something anybody who's an agile coach or a scrum master out there will know. This is incredibly difficult to change behavior in organizations and understand the behaviors that we see. There's some groundbreaking work going on in that field, and we don't really have time to go too deep in it, but I just want to take the lid off of it, have a look in to pique your interest. So that's going to be mastering human interactions. And then at the end of all of this, it's got to be verifiable to you, because if you can't verify it, you can't know whether it's a reasonable or valid thing to do, a relevant thing to do for you. Okay, so those are the areas. We're going to try and navigate through them. And I think I'm just getting some messages. No, that's not relevant to this. So let's move on. So let's have a look at a definition of technology. Now, if you look up technology, you see something like this. So the application of scientific knowledge for practical purposes, and it's applied to industry, to work. But it can be applied to many, many other things. And we're going to have a look at that in a moment. But typically you would be looking at application of knowledge to systems, to equipment, and to processes in order to gain a specific desired output. This is a very specific, narrow definition of technology. And I want to see if we can expand that a little bit more. So every time you see the jigsaw puzzle with the green piece with the gap missing in the person's head, I'm going to need you to think a little bit more creatively and exponentially. The crazier the thought, the better. I'm going to come back to that notion at the end with a true story, something that I experienced. So what is technology? Well, how I would explain it, I would say that it is the ways and means. It's the how. They're the skills you possess in order to get things done, whether you're talking about a process, whether you're talking about investigation. And a key component in technology is feedback. Okay, I think could somebody mute that? You mute yourself. I'm getting some noise, yeah. So let's have a look at this this image here on the screen. As I said, my background is in biological science, so a lot of my references hark back to biology because I still love it quite a lot. So over on the right hand side of the screen, there is a larvae. Now this is a planktonic larvae, so it's found in the sea. It's a marine larvae, and this is the marine larvae of a flatworm. And those of you who did biology would remember your flatworms, Platyhelminthes. So this larvae has some incredible technology. It's absolutely staggering. You can see these what look like legs shooting out of the side. Well, these actually allow this larvae to alter its depth in the sea, and it has at the top a large photoreceptor, so it alters its position in the seawater based on the amount of light that is coming through. This is an application of biologic technology. We're going to see this again and compare it with our real world situation in a more obvious way. But what I'm trying to say here is we need to think very broadly about what technology actually is, because this organism is achieving something quite incredible that would take us years to try to replicate. Now, some systems are in existence. We've got photoreceptors which are linked up to printed circuit boards and are integrated and can perform functions. But this thing does it all by itself. So it's just to understand how broad the application of technology actually is. This takes us into another space, another big idea that we want to look at. And we're going to be looking at a number of big ideas around this technology space. We mentioned AI earlier on, and I wanted to just peel the lid off of consciousness. This is a huge subject, but if we're talking about the future of work, if we're talking about the human interface with machines, consciousness is always around the corner in the discussion. So here we're defining consciousness in quite a narrow way again, as just as being a state of being aware and responsive to things around you. So when we say responsive, we're introducing another big idea that is you're going to see as a theme through this conversation. And that is that if you are responsive to your surroundings, you are interacting. And interaction is going to be a big theme that we continue with. And we'll see when we actually just stop and pause for a moment and look, we've got this image of the brain, we've got this printed circuit, and what we're representing here is what we call an interface. And an interface is a place where two systems, it could be an organic system, it could be an inorganic system, it could be a human, it could be a machine, it could be two different organizations. It is a point where they meet and interactions occur. So one of the key characteristics of an interface is that it must be in balance to allow the interactions to occur. So how does all of this feed into Agile, and how does this all feed into how we work? Well, let's develop the ideas first, and then we're going to go into it. So we've just spoken about the interface, and we've spoken about this idea of balance. Now, I want to get you to think about this. Whether you're a biologist or not, this matters to you. As an organism, as an air-breathing organism, consuming oxygen, we all produce our energy by this top equation here, cellular respiration. So we've got glucose and oxygen making carbon dioxide and water. Carbon dioxide and water are the waste products of cellular respiration, but they are the base raw materials of photosynthesis. So in the animal kingdom, we consume carbohydrates as fuel for our energy. In the plant kingdom, the plants consume carbon dioxide and water along with the input of sunlight to create the fuel that we consume. This is an interface which needs to remain in balance for all cellular organisms on the planet to survive. So that is how important balance and an interface is. And this is the reason why we've got the Paris Climate Accord, because we realize that things are going a little bit awry on this planet in terms of the pollution that we're creating. This is the reason why. Because if we upset this in a way that we can't reverse, we've got a problem. When we look at biological systems, these interactions, particularly in multicellular organisms, which is what we are, work down neural networks. And again, I just want to introduce the idea that this neural network is the place where the interactions occur. And if we're talking about artificial intelligence and interfacing with machines, it's going to make sense to really understand our neural networks. And I've got to tell you, there's a lot of work that needs to be done still. We still really don't know that much about them. But down a neural network, the kind of interactions that one can experience are things such as nerve impulses, phone calls, emails, sound waves, speech. And this is occurring in what we would call a complex adaptive system, an organism, you or me, in other words. So on the left here, we've got the components of artificial intelligence. Notice the network on the right. We've got an android with an image of a network of interactions, but machines are capable currently of all of these properties. Vision, autonomous vehicles. Google has done a huge amount on autonomous vehicles, as have Tesla, robotics, and NLP. So the networks are the frameworks through which these interactions travel down and are communicated and transmitted. So here we go again, back to work. And it's often said about the work-life balance. Well, I'm really more concerned with the word balance here. We've spoken about balance at the interface and the importance of balance being at the interface to support the interactions. And getting back to work and how these things impact work, if we look, for example, at an area that I was in, on the left here, you can see a robot, top left. And on the right, you can see what is an artificial hip. Now, I'm just going to throw this out. I mean, we probably won't have, I think everybody's muted, but I'd like you to just think, how old do you think that robot is? How old do you think that artificial hip is? Well, I'll tell you, because you're all muted. If this was an audience, it'd be so much more fun. So the robot on the left is called Robodoc, and that was designed in the late 1980s. The artificial hip on the right is called the S-ROM. It was designed by a Russian orthopedic surgeon, and that was designed in the 1970s. So that's going on sort of 50 odd years. And what I would ask is the technology that is being used here obsolete? So the reason why I spent a bit of time talking about human technology is that this device on the right-hand side, the hip, if you look closely, you can see little steps at the top. There's a sleeve at the top. That sleeve is what we call porous coated. Porous coating on an orthopedic implant is metal which has incorporated in it the same biological constituents of bone. And the reason for that is to allow the bone to grow onto the implant, in other words, to integrate. So this technology is bang up to date. It's been around for 70, 80 years, but it's bang up to date. And it's bang up to date because the human side is fixing it. So that's just something that we need to consider when we're looking at this human-machine interface, the limitations that we have as the human beings. So we said we'd look at some biologic technology, and we'd bring in the concept of algorithms. So when I say the word algorithm, I mean, in a narrow sense, simply a set of instructions. You know, developers write code which are instructions to perform a task, to execute something. Algorithms are simply a set of instructions. So we've got two builders here. We've got a bricklayer at the top, and we've got a spider at the bottom. And the bricklayer may have gone to college, or he might have learned his trade from his family, but he would have learned that. He wasn't born and capable of doing that. Spider, on the other hand, another builder, is able to construct a web immediately. There's an algorithm, a code within their DNA, which enables them to create proteins, build their own bodies, build the silk that's required to build the web, and to give them the know-how of how to spin it. So again, when we're looking at the future of work, we've got to consider natural systems. That's what we've got to do. We've got to consider natural systems in order for us to understand them, so that we can create stable interfaces. So finally, we get to Agile, and we can go back to the start of our conversation. And that was, I asked you to do this exercise, this breathing exercise, a little bit of human technology, as I called it. How does that play into work and the future of where work goes? Well, at the moment, in an agile way of working, we plan the work that we want to do, we do it, we inspect it, and we adjust. So in Scrum, we have this inspection, adaptation, and we make it transparent. So we have this Scrum theory. This is taken from Scaled Agile, which really is extracting the same, the PDCA cycle. So you plan something, which is a cerebral activity, which is a thought process, and then you execute it, which is a physical task. You then inspect what you've done, you analyze what you've done, which is another thought process, and then you make an adjustment. That adjustment is a result of learning, and learning is central in agile ways of working. And one of the things that we find with work of the future, we're basically moving into the information age. Well, we're not moving into it, we're in it. And in that information age, learning, continuous learning is fundamentally required. And if we look at the big ideas why, we have to understand systems. We have to understand our own human system. And I would suggest that we need to understand our own human system very well before we start interfacing with machines. Otherwise, we might get Arnie's Terminator as a result. So the balance that is achieved through understanding the two systems at the interface allows stability of the interactions and therefore the efficiency of any transactional activity to occur. And we see this straight away in agile ways of working. And then this agile has been, I suppose, around for centuries, but has probably only been instituted and codified by words for the past sort of 20, 22, 23 years or so. But one of the things, that I really do like about Agile, and I had some questions here for you, is how Agile goes into nature, pulls and abstracts things out of nature and applies them. So when we're looking at work in the future, we're looking at these complex adaptive systems, we're looking at AI, we're looking at deep learning, we're looking at the interface, the human-machine interface. We have to understand the human interface very well. And in the agile ways of working, Agile does this. So we have this thing in nature called the golden ratio. And I was going to ask you, but you're all muted. Actually, could you unmute everybody? Let's make this a little bit more interactive. Hello, are we unmuted?
Hi.
Yes, are we unmuted, people? Are we unmuted? Annabelle, could you unmute everybody?
They all have the ability to unmute
Okay.
themselves.
All right, okay, I'm
Hi,
going to
we're
ask you
here.
some questions, guys. Okay, so this symbol is called phi. On the left, the big one is uppercase. On the right, the smaller one is lowercase. Let's have a look at this number sequence. Can anybody tell me the name of that number sequence? Shout out. What's the name of the number sequence? Who's come across this?
Fibonacci sequence.
Exactly. Perfect. So if you look at that sequence, you can see a pattern. If you add the two previous numbers, you get the next number. Yeah? Can you see the pattern?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So what is X? Who can tell me what number is X?
89.
89.
Exactly. Okay. And where is this used in the agile world?
I guess it's not used, right? Because when it is so big, then this means there's a lot of uncertainty, ambiguity that need to be clarified.
Yeah, no, but yes, that for large stuff, yes. But where is this sequence used? What process?
To assign the points.
Estimate.
Get.
To assign points for the purpose of
3 points.
Estimate.
Yes, measure your speed of the spring.
Okay, so for measurements, and one other word beginning with E.
Estimating.
Estimation. An estimation is an attempt to do what?
Measure.
It's just an attempt to try and predict what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the beautiful thing about this number sequence, why it's called the golden ratio, is that it can be observed absolutely everywhere. So the big idea here that I'm trying to suggest is that if we are observant of nature, of which we are a part, we can take this into the future of work. And I think this is a very, very strong theme. Okay. We spoke about predictability. This is some of the things that we currently do now. So we spoke about story points, we spoke about estimation, and in the Agile world, we're trying to work iteratively, we're trying to deliver value quickly, and when we work in sprints or iterations, we estimate how much we can get done in a fixed period of time. And we can measure this. And the reason why we can measure this is because we can actually observe what happened. So we forecast what we think it is, and then we observe what actually happened. So in other words, we can create what we call a say-do ratio. This is what we say we think it is, and this is what it actually turned out to be. If you observe that, remember that it's about being observant. So if you observe that, in SAFe, we have a program increment, which could be five sprints or 5 iterations in length, so up to 10 weeks. If you observe this carefully, meticulously over that period, you get to learn very clearly what a team can or can't do. Now, this is one of the teams that I'm working with. So you can see on the left here, 4.1 to 4.4 are the iterations, and on the left, and this is what we say we were going to do. So we said we were going to do 51, and then we actually did 24. So we had a say-do ratio of 47%. Not great, but at least we know we've got a basis to improve, and you can see that it increases progressively as the team realizes they're trying to take on too much work, and they reduce the amount of work they take on in line with what they can actually do. This is what it informs of. This is a slide which looks at the impact that this is scaled Agile has had, and this comes from cases from scaled Agile, from the scaled Agile framework, and what they found in terms of engagement of teams. Could somebody mute themselves? I'm getting a bit of background. Thank you. So 30% of employees are happier because they're more engaged. Products get to market 50% quicker. There's a lower level of defects and raised productivity. These, of course, are arguable, but what you're trying to do is create permissive conditions for faster times to market, delivering value quickly, happier, motivated people, more productivity, and higher quality. If we take this a step further, and this is really an area I feel that if you're in the youthful phase of your life, is really going to be massive over the next 10 years. And this is the area of social physics. And the father of social physics, sorry, there's a typo there. That should be Pentland, P-E-N-T, not Petland, Pentland. The father of social physics, so sorry, father of social physics, Alex Pentland has written a book. I've got the book there, and I will leave the slides with the guys at Akaditi. And what this guy is doing is nothing short of staggering. He's a sort of 70-year-old professor at MIT. And what they are doing is they are studying these interactions in these networks. And their model comes from cellular biology, from nature, and they are modeling these interactions and taking them into real world scenarios. And what they're looking at is the interactions and collecting data on the interactions to represent and predict how things are going to flow. So this is a huge area, and this really gets under the skin of looking at what culture is, how it can be unpicked, predicting who's going to leave the organization, who's happy, who's productive. This will give us all of these great insights, and will allow us, anybody who's done an agile transformation knows that when the agile folk leave, so does the transformation. So these are the tools which will really allow us to embed in the behavior of people in the future, so that we can achieve some of those projected figures that working in agile ways can deliver to organizations. So yes, I certainly recommend this. And this is actually an example of my current client using some of this social physics to look at how they can move customers from their current state to a future state, employing the insights that interactions give through automation and through integration, looking at what's obsolete, looking at what's cutting edge, looking at how users migrate and move from different systems and utilize different areas of the services. So these are the ways that we are looking at predicting the future currently. And some of this is coming into organizations as of now. We're actually using this as of now. And the quote is at the bottom. I think this is Abraham Lincoln. Somebody needs to mute again. And this quote, I like it and I don't like it, because it's yeah, it can be, I think it probably can be a bit pejorative, I suppose, but it is true in that the best way to predict the future is to create it. Well, we're certainly in that phase and in that mode. And speaking of the future, we're wrapping up so that we can have some questions and a Q&A session at the end. I was going to say questions and answers, but I can't guarantee I can answer anything really. I'm a sort of fan of Star Trek, and those of you who know Star Trek will know that that there are two sort of huge organizations in Star Trek, and Starfleet is one of them. And Starfleet is a command, and it has officers. And you know, I often wonder, you know, what is Starfleet's objective? You know, the claim is for exploration, to boldly go, but a lot of the times they're policing, and the rest of the time they're engaged in war. You know, why else would they be a command? So, you know, the reason why I bring this up is because there is an amazing idea that Gene Roddenberry came up with relating to the future of work, and that ties in with the higher organization that Starfleet is actually a subset of, which is the United Federation of Planets. And here, the big idea, the purpose of work is that, you know, people are not working for money, you know, sort of 1,000 years into the future. They are working to acquire knowledge so that it can be applied. And if you read Michio Kaku's famous book, The Physics of the Impossible, you will know that there's this Kardashev scale of planetary civilization, and the United Federation of Planets is a type 1, which means that it is able to manage the energy of a planet totally and completely. And once you can do that, you are freed from the drudgery of having to work for money. It's no longer a concern. So ultimately, you know, my hope, my dream is that the future of work can tend towards something like this. So I'll just end with a little true story. So I worked in science, and I worked for Johnson & Johnson, and I was the marketing manager for orthopedics. But before I got that position, I was a field sales rep, and I worked in operating theatres. And they asked us one time to come up with 3 products. And it was like a ask the reps to get the idea from the field. And they asked us to come up with 3 products for hemostasis. And I was selling quite a lot of these hemostatic products. And there were 3 categories. There was what we call Me Too, so a straight copy of what's out there, competition to fill that market segment. There's incremental, something that was better than the competition, marginally to have a competitive advantage, and then something that was transformational. And I submitted 3 ideas, and 4 of the reps for the whole country got selected to go up and present to the marketing board and the R&D board. Well, me with my head in the clouds had seen some surgery being done in a hospital using an ultrasonic scalpel, which vibrates about 55,000 cycles a second. Where's this going? So I presented these 3 products, but my transformational product was a little bit on the Star Trek side. What was it? It was a molecular scalpel. Why? Because I thought if you could uncouple vessels, blood vessels at a molecular level, if you could open them and close them using enzymes and laser, you'd be able to have bloodless surgery, just like in Star Trek. So I presented this, and it was one of the most humiliating experiences of my life. I got laughed at. So in those days, we had what we called OHP, overhead projectors, and the slides were written out by hand. And at the end, I was packing away my slides, and the director of R&D came up to me with a big file. He opened the file, and he pointed to a document. He said, look, someone has already patented a molecular scalpel. 1973, I believe it was. Why do I say this? I say this because it is these crazy notions which stretch the possibilities in the world of work and where that trajectory of work can go. So the crazier the idea, trust and believe somebody else has already had it. So with that, I'd like to thank you for indulging me. I'd like to thank you for your time, and happy critical thinking. We can take some questions. I think we've got, 15 minutes.
Thank you, Robin.
Right.
Thank you so much. This was indeed very insightful. If you have any contribution or questions, you can use the Q&A session, or you can unmute yourself and ask him any question you have or contribution.
Any questions?
Okay, so I think there's no question
Okay.
for you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you.
I've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
Are there any Agile coaches in the audience?
Guys, please, you can speak up.
Have we got any Agile coaches? Any Scrum Masters? Are there any written questions? Because I can't see any written questions, Annabelle.
There are no questions.
Okay. I must have stunned everybody into silence, given them too much to think about.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you
Thank you
very
all
much.
for coming. Thank you,
Okay.
Robin.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All
And
right.
please join us tomorrow at 12 p.m. for another thrilling session.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think someone has a, okay.
Oh, somebody has a question. Okay. Yeah, fire away.
Nana Yao, do you have a question?
No. It was just a response to what you
Oh,
were
okay.
telling me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys for coming.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
You there, Annabelle?
Yes, please.
Yeah. How many people did we have?
29.
29. Okay. That was
Yes.
interesting. Okay. And are they mainly from Ghana? So I don't really see, where people are coming from and stuff.
Okay, most are from Ghana.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's good.
But not all, most of
Okay.
them.
All right. Well, next time round, I'll definitely. I was just so busy in the run up to this, but next time round, we'll definitely. I will do some publicity down this end.
Would love that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right then. Take care. Bye bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Heaven knows how we will get, but we know we will. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know we will get there. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know we will get there. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know we will get there.